The Zirian invasion of Valon had been swift and merciless. For 3 brutal months, the peaceful Valonian people watched their cities crumble under the relentless assault of the technologically superior invaders. The beautiful crystal spires that had once reached toward the twin moons now lay in ruins, shattered like the hopes of the silver-skinned beings who had built them. Commander Alara stood at the viewport of their hidden mountain base, her luminescent eyes reflecting the glow of distant fires. Her once pristine uniform hung loosely on her frame, a testament to the hardships of recent weeks. She had not slept for 3 days, but sleep was a luxury the last military leader of Valon could not afford. "The eastern quadrant has fallen," reported Lieutenant Zern as he entered the command center. His voice was hollow with exhaustion. "Our shields cannot withstand another orbital bombardment." Ilara nodded slowly, having expected this news. The Valonians were known throughout the galaxy for their artistic achievements and diplomatic wisdom. Their crystalline architecture, their harmonious music, their philosophy of peaceful coexistence, all were celebrated by countless species across dozens of star systems. But they had never developed significant military capabilities. Their society had flourished through cooperation rather than conflict. Now that same peaceful nature had left them defenseless against the resource-hungry Zirian Empire. "How many civilians did we manage to evacuate?" she asked, still staring at the burning horizon. 6,000, Zern replied. "They're in the shelter beneath us. Food supplies will last another month if strictly rationed." "A month." Ilara closed her eyes briefly. A month would make no difference. The Zirians were methodical in their conquest. They would find this last refuge, just as they had found all the others. In a desperate move 3 weeks ago, Ilara had authorized sending emergency transmissions to every corner of the galaxy. Most had gone unanswered. The few allied species who responded expressed sympathy but feared Zirian retaliation if they intervened. The destruction of Valon, it seemed, would simply become another tragic footnote in galactic history. "We have perhaps 2 days before they locate this facility," Ilara said, turning to face the 12 remaining members of her council who had gathered silently behind Zern. "Begin evacuating the civilians in the shelter below. There's a network of caves extending to the southern continent. Some might survive there, at least for a while." "And us?" asked an elderly counselor, his silver skin dull with age and worry. "We will make our final stand here," Ilara answered simply. "We will buy them time." The council members exchanged glances. There was no fear in their eyes, only resignation and a quiet dignity that had characterized their species for millennia. "It will be done, Commander," the elderly counselor said with a slight bow. One by one, the others followed suit before departing to carry out their final duties. Only Zern remained. He had served alongside Ilara for 15 years, ever since they had been young officers in what passed for Valon's ceremonial defense force. Neither had ever expected to fight in an actual war. "The children are asking if the sky will ever be safe again," he said quietly. Ilara had no answer. The Zirians did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They came, they extracted what resources they needed, and they left behind devastated worlds. In the 300 years since they had emerged from their home system, no one had successfully stood against them. "Tell them," she began, but was interrupted by the sudden blaring of an alarm. A young communications officer burst into the chamber, his eyes wide. "Commander, we've detected multiple ships entering the system." Ilara's posture stiffened. "How many?" 12, Commander. "They've somehow bypassed the Zirian blockade." Hope flickered briefly in Ilara's eyes, but she quashed it quickly. "Another Zirian battle group, most likely. They must have sensed we were hiding something valuable here." "No, Commander." The young officer's voice trembled slightly. "The ships, they're not in our database. Their configuration doesn't match any known species in this sector." Zern stepped forward. "Mercenaries, perhaps? Hired by one of our allies?" The communications officer shook his head. "They're transmitting on all frequencies in a language our systems are struggling to translate, but one word keeps repeating." "What word?" asked Ilara. Humans. The command center fell silent. The word meant nothing to any of them. In all the vast records of Valonian exploration and diplomatic contact, no species called humans had ever been mentioned. How long until they reach orbit? Ilara finally asked. They already have, Commander. They're positioning themselves between the Zarian fleet and the planet. This was impossible. No ships could move that quickly, not even the Zarians with their advanced propulsion systems. Show me, Ilara ordered. The central holographic display activated, showing the space above Valon. The familiar, dreaded shapes of 37 Zarian warships hung in high orbit. But now, 12 new vessels had appeared. They were smaller than the Zarian ships, with sleek designs that suggested both speed and purpose. Even as the Valonians watched, the newcomers arranged themselves in a defensive formation that protected the planet below. They're hailing us directly now, the communications officer reported. Our translation system is adapting to their language. Put it through, Ilara commanded. A voice filled the command center. It spoke in strangely accented but understandable galactic standard. This is Captain Alan West of the United Earthship Horizon to Valonian Defense Forces. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Please respond. Ilara exchanged a stunned glance with Zern. United Earth? I've never heard of such a place. Nor have I, Zern replied. But whoever they are, they've just placed themselves between us and destruction. On the holographic display, the Zarian ships were adjusting their positions, clearly unsettled by the arrival of these unknown vessels. Open a channel, Ilara ordered. Channel open, Commander. Ilara straightened her uniform, a habit from more formal days. This is Commander Ilara of Valon. We are grateful for your response, Captain West. But I must warn you, the Zarian Empire does not tolerate interference. You have placed yourselves in grave danger. The reply came swiftly. We're aware of the Zarians, Commander. They attacked one of our research vessels 6 months ago. We've been looking for them ever since. The implications of this statement sent murmurs through the command center. These newcomers, these humans, were not only unafraid of the Zarians, they had been hunting them. The Zarian fleet outnumbers you 3-1, Ilara cautioned. A strange sound came over the channel, something the translation system couldn't quite interpret. Later, the Valonians would learn it was something called a chuckle. Numbers. Aren't everything, Commander, Captain West replied. Humanity has a long history of overcoming bad odds. Hold your position. Help is on the way. As if to punctuate this declaration, the holographic display showed the Zarian fleet suddenly launching weapons toward the planet. The watching Valonians held their breath, expecting to see the human ships destroyed. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented. The human vessels released thousands of small objects that intercepted the Zarian attack mid-flight, neutralizing it completely. Then, with a coordination that stunned the observers, the newcomers began their own assault. The battle had begun. And for the first time in 3 dark months, the Valonians dared to hope. Captain Alan West stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the tactical display with careful attention. The ship hummed with energy as the crew worked at their stations. This was humanity's first real battle in space against an alien force, and every person on board felt the weight of that moment. Zarian vessels adjusting formation, reported Lieutenant Paige Lucas, her eyes fixed on her sensor screens. They're trying to surround us. West nodded. He was a tall man with short gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had served in Earth's naval forces for 20 years before being chosen to command this ship. The 12 vessels of Earth's Rapid Response Fleet had jumped directly into the Valon system, using their new quantum jump technology. This had surprised the Zarians, who clearly expected any help to come through normal space lanes they had blocked. Keep our ships in defensive formation, West ordered. Maintain the shield wall protecting the planet. Lieutenant Carmen Martinez looked up from her communication station. Captain, I've established a secure link with the Valonian Command Center. Commander Ilara is requesting to speak with you. Put her through, West said. The main screen changed to show Commander Ilara's silver face. Her luminescent eyes studied West with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "Captain West," she began, "your ships have successfully blocked the first Zurian attack wave. But they will adapt their tactics, they always do." "So will we, Commander," West replied calmly. "Adaptation is something humans excel at." Ilara tilted her head slightly. "You mentioned that the Zirians attacked your people before, yet I've never heard of humans in all our records. We're relatively new to interstellar travel," West explained. "Earth only developed quantum jump technology 5 years ago. We've met just 3 other alien species before now, all peaceful traders. The Zirians were the first hostile species we encountered when they attacked an unarmed research vessel near a star we call Sirius." West didn't add that the attack had resulted in the deaths of 27 scientists and had unified Earth's nations in a way nothing else could have. The rapid military buildup that followed had been unprecedented in human history. "Why would you come to help us?" Ilara asked, the question that had been bothering her since the humans arrived. "You don't know our people. We have nothing to offer you in return." West smiled slightly. "On Earth we have a saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. We choose not to do nothing." Before Ilara could respond, Lieutenant Frank Boyd at the tactical station shouted, "Zirian vessels, powering up main weapons. They're targeting multiple points on the planet's surface. Intercept those weapons," West commanded immediately. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Echo." The bridge erupted into activity as orders were transmitted across the human fleet. The 12 Earth vessels moved with perfect coordination, deploying advanced point defense systems. Thousands of small drones launched from the ships, forming a protective net around the planet. When the Zirians fired, the drones intercepted most of the energy beams and missiles. A few got through, striking unpopulated areas of Valon. "Minimal damage to the planet's surface," Boyd reported. "Our defense screen caught 89% of their attack." West nodded, then turned back to the screen where Ilara was watching with amazement. "Commander, I'd like to send a team to your location. We need to coordinate our efforts." "Of course," Ilara agreed quickly. "I'll transmit the safe approach vectors to avoid Zirian patrols." 6 hours later, West stepped off a small shuttle into the Valonian Command Center. With him were Major Olivia Wright, commander of the 5th Orbital Drop Infantry Division, and Dr. Nathan Lee, the fleet's chief science officer. The humans wore simple blue uniforms that contrasted sharply with their pink skin, a color the Valonians had never seen on a sentient species before. Ilara and her officers stared at the newcomers with undisguised curiosity. The humans were shorter than Valonians, but moved with a surprising quickness that suggested strength. "Thank you for receiving us," West said with a slight bow, a gesture his team had learned was a Valonian sign of respect. Ilara returned the bow. "Your arrival has given my people hope, Captain West, but I must be realistic. Even with your impressive technology, the Zirians outnumber you significantly, and we have reports they've called for reinforcements." Major Wright stepped forward. She was a compact woman with short black hair and alert eyes that missed nothing. "Numbers aren't always the deciding factor in warfare, Commander, especially if we can take the fight to the ground." "The ground?" Ilara looked confused. "But the Zirians have already landed thousands of troops in our major cities. They're stripping our world of resources even now. That's exactly why we should engage them there," Wright explained. "Your world, your terrain. It gives us advantages that space combat doesn't." Dr. Lee nodded in agreement. "We've analyzed the Zirian patterns from previous conquests. They don't expect resistance once they've established ground control. It's not in their tactical doctrine." West watched as the Valonian officers exchanged glances. He understood their skepticism. The silver-skinned aliens had never developed military thinking the way humans had. Their society had evolved through cooperation and artistic achievement, not conflict. "Major Wright commands 5,000 of our best soldiers," West explained. "They're equipped with powered combat armor and weapons specifically designed to counter Zirian technology." "You would send actual people to fight?" Zern asked in disbelief. "Not automated systems or drones?" Wright smiled. "Humans prefer the personal touch in combat, Lieutenant. No machine can adapt like a well-trained soldier. Over the next 2 hours, The human officers laid out their plan. While the fleet would maintain the orbital defense of Valon, Major Wright's infantry division would drop to the surface and begin systematically reclaiming the major. Population centers. Ilara and her council listened with growing amazement as the humans discussed tactics and strategies that had never occurred to the peaceful Valonians. They spoke of concepts like guerrilla warfare and psychological impact with casual familiarity. "Your people evolved as warriors?" Ilara finally asked. West considered this. "Not exactly. We evolved as survivors. Earth is a challenging world with many natural dangers. Throughout our history, we've had to adapt to overcome those challenges. Sometimes that meant fighting, often against each other, I'm sorry to say. But it also made us very good at finding ways to win against superior forces." "And now you'll fight for us," Zern said, still looking doubtful. "We'll fight with you," Major Wright corrected him. "If your people are willing to learn, we can teach them to defend themselves." For the first time in months, Ilara felt something like real hope. She looked at these strange, pink-skinned aliens who had traveled across space to help people they'd never met. "When can your soldiers land?" she asked. Major Wright checked her wrist device. "My troops are prepped and ready. We can begin drops in 6 hours." Captain West watched the determination grow in Ilara's expression. "Commander, we can't promise victory. The Zarians are a formidable enemy. But I can promise you this. Humans don't give up easily, and we don't leave our friends behind." "Friends," Ilara repeated the word softly. "Yes, I believe we are that now." Outside the mountain base, night was falling over the devastated landscape of Valon. But for the first time since the invasion began, the darkness didn't feel like an ending. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something new, something the Zirians could never have anticipated when they chose this peaceful world as their next conquest. Humans had arrived, and everything was about to change. The night sky above Valon lit up with streaks of fire as 5,000 human soldiers descended to the planet's surface. From the Mountain Command Center, Commander Ilara and Captain West watched the deployment on a large screen. Each glowing trail represented a drop pod carrying 4 to 6 human soldiers in powered combat armor. "Your people actually enjoy this?" Ilara asked in amazement as she watched the pods enter the atmosphere at tremendous speeds. West smiled. "Major Wright tells me it's quite a rush. The 5th Orbital Drop Infantry Division specifically trains for high-altitude insertions. They call themselves Helldivers." Lieutenant Zern studied the tactical display with growing interest. "The Zurians are detecting the drops. They're moving anti-aircraft weapons into position, right on schedule," West noted calmly. A moment later, the human fleet in orbit fired precision strikes that disabled the Zarian defense systems seconds before the drop pods passed through those sectors. The coordinated assault unfolded with a precision that left the Valonian officers speechless. Within 30 minutes, all 5,000 human soldiers had landed at their designated points around the 3 largest Zarian extraction operations. Major Olivia Wright's voice came through the command center speakers. "All units grounded and operational. Minimal casualties during descent. Beginning Phase 2. The Valonians had never seen anything like what followed. On the tactical displays, they watched as the human soldiers moved through the ruined cities with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. They used the urban terrain, the very rubble the Zarians had created, as cover and concealment. "The Zarians always fight in large organized units," Zern observed. "They're struggling to track the smaller human squads." "Exactly as we planned," West replied. "Humans excel at asymmetric warfare. Major Wright is forcing them to spread out, creating gaps in their defenses." 6 hours into the ground assault, Wright herself reported in from the field. Her face appeared on the command screen, her armor scorched but intact. Behind her, the sounds of distant weapons fire echoed. "Eastern district of the capital is secured," she reported. "The Zarians are falling back to their central extraction site. They fight well in their mechanized units, but they lack individual initiative. When we take out their command elements, the regular troops become disorganized." "Casualties?" West asked. 17 dead, 43 wounded," Wright answered. The Zarian energy weapons are nasty, but our armor holds up well enough for a first engagement. We're adapting our tactics based on what we're learning about their weapons systems. Ilara stepped forward. Major Wright, there are thousands of Valonian civilians hiding in the underground levels of the city. Can your people locate them? Wright nodded. Already on it, Commander. We've found 3 major shelter sites so far. The Zarians apparently ignored them once they determined there were no valuable resources there. Her expression darkened. These Zarians, they don't even see your people as worth capturing. They just want your planet's crystals. That has been their pattern across many worlds, Ilara confirmed. To them, we are simply in the way. Well, now they have a new problem, Wright said firmly. Us. The ground battle continued through the night and into the next day. The humans employed strategies the Zarians had never encountered before, setting ambushes, using captured Zarian weapons against them, and cutting supply lines rather than engaging in direct confrontation with larger forces. By the second day, Major Wright had established 3 secure zones in the most populated areas. Valonian civilians emerged from hiding, staring in wonder at these strange pink-skinned aliens who fought with such determination to protect people they had never met before. In the command center, Ilara received reports from across the planet. The Zarians are pulling back from secondary cities to reinforce their main positions, she told West. They're adapting to your tactics. They're learning, West agreed, but not fast enough. A young Valonian communications officer rushed into the room. Commander, we're receiving transmissions from resistance cells in the southern continent. They say the Zarians are abandoning the mining operations there completely. Ilara looked at West in surprise. We had no organized resistance. How is this possible? West checked his data tablet. Major Wright dispatched small teams to those regions on the first day, 10 soldiers to each major settlement. He smiled at Ilara's confusion. One of the most important military lessons from Earth's history. A small group of determined fighters can train and inspire a much larger local population. On the third day, the human soldiers began employing their heavy weapons. Specialized teams targeted the massive Zarian mining machines that were extracting the planet's crystalline core materials. The explosions could be seen from orbit. In one particularly bold operation, Lieutenant Sam Rivera led a squad of 20 human soldiers into the heart of the largest Zarian processing facility. Using stealth technology in their armor, they planted fusion charges throughout the complex, then triggered them during their escape. The resulting chain reaction destroyed equipment that had taken the Zarians weeks to set up. The economic cost to the Zarians is mounting, Dr. Lee reported during a strategy meeting. Based on our intelligence, they've already lost mining equipment worth more than the total value of the resources they've managed to extract. Making the invasion unprofitable, West noted with satisfaction. That's been our strategy from the beginning. By the 5th day, the tide had turned dramatically. Human soldiers had secured 7 major Valonian cities. More importantly, Valonian civilians were now actively assisting the human forces, providing intelligence on Zarian movements, and even beginning to fight alongside their human allies. In the command center, Ilara watched as a group of Valonian volunteers received basic combat training from human sergeants. The sight of her peaceful people learning to fight still disturbed her, but she understood the necessity. Your soldiers treat our people with respect, she said to West as they observed the training. They don't look down on us for not knowing how to fight. Everyone starts somewhere, West replied. Humans weren't always warriors. We had to learn these skills through hard necessity. Before Ilara could respond, Lieutenant Boyd rushed in with an urgent report. Captain, long-range sensors have detected 3 additional Zarian battle groups altering course toward this system. Estimated arrival, 4 days. West's expression grew serious. We can't match those numbers, even with the reinforcements and our route from Earth. For a moment, the hope that had been building seemed to dim. The Valonians in the command center exchanged worried glances. Had all the progress been for nothing? But then Master Sergeant Damon Kelly, a veteran special operations soldier who had been quietly studying the Zarian command structure, stepped forward. Sir, he said to West, I don't think we need to match their numbers. I think we need to change the game entirely. All eyes turned to Kelly as he continued. The Zarians aren't fighting for their homes. They consider this a resource acquisition mission, not a vital military objective. I believe we can make them decide Valan isn't worth the cost. How? Alara asked. Kelly pointed to the massive Zarian command ship in orbit. We capture that, show them that humans can take everything they throw at us and still come back stronger. The room fell silent as they considered this audacious plan. Against all logic, against all military doctrine the Valonians had ever known, they found themselves believing it might work because these humans had already done the impossible once. Perhaps they could do it again. Master Sergeant Damon Kelly stood before the gathered human and Valonian leaders in the war room. The tall, broad-shouldered soldier with dark skin and calm eyes had spent 20 years in Earth's special forces before joining the space fleet. Now all eyes were on him as he explained his plan to capture the Zarian command ship. The Zarians think in patterns, Kelly said, pointing to the holographic display of the enemy vessel. Their security systems are designed to stop large assaults, not small infiltration teams. Captain West nodded slowly. You're suggesting a stealth mission? Yes, sir, Kelly confirmed. 20 operators, 2 dropships with the new quantum scramblers that should bypass their detection systems. We board the vessel, fight our way to the command center, and seize control. Lieutenant Zern looked shocked. 20 humans against 2,000 Zarians? Kelly smiled slightly. The odds improve if no one knows we're there until it's too late. After hours of intense debate, the decision was made. Captain West authorized the mission despite the enormous risk. As preparations began, Commander Alara pulled West aside. Your people are willing to attempt this? She asked. The danger is extreme. Every volunteer on this mission understands the stakes, West replied. If we can capture their command ship, we might end this war without further bloodshed. 12 hours later, 2 stealth dropships detached from the UES horizon. The small black vessels were barely visible even to the human fleet's sensors. They slipped through space toward the massive Zarian command ship, using debris from earlier battles as cover. Inside the lead dropship, Sergeant Kelly checked his weapons one final time. Around him, 19 human special forces operators did the same. Their advanced combat armor was matte black with additional stealth plating. Each carried multiple weapons specially designed to work against Zarian systems. Remember, Kelly told his team, our primary objective is the command center. Secondary objectives are the engine room and weapons control. Once we take those, we control the ship. The woman beside him, Lieutenant Rita Garcia, nodded. Just like the training simulations, except with real aliens trying to kill us. Pretty much, Kelly agreed with a grim smile. The dropships approached the Zarian vessel from underneath, attaching to maintenance hatches that the human intelligence team had identified from scans. Using advanced cutting tools, the human operators created their own entry points and slipped inside. The first hour went exactly as planned. Using the ship's own ventilation system and maintenance tunnels, the human team moved deeper into the vessel without being detected. When they did encounter Zarian crew members, they used non-lethal stun weapons to avoid raising alarms. In the Valonian command center, Alara, West, and the others watched the mission unfold through small cameras mounted on the operators' helmets. The tension was thick as the humans navigated through the alien ship. They're approaching the central computer core, West noted, checking the ship schematics they had constructed from scan data. Once they control that, they can lock down sections of the ship. The mood changed suddenly when alarms began blaring throughout the Zarian vessel. On the screens, they saw Kelly's team taking cover as security doors slammed shut around them. They've been detected, Lieutenant Boyd reported. Zarian security forces are converging on their position. What followed was something the Valonians would later describe in historical accounts as the 18-hour miracle. Cut off from their planned extraction route, Kelly and his team were forced to fight their way through the ship toward the command center. We're committed now. Kelly's voice came through calm despite the chaos around him. Switching to Plan Bravo. Plan Bravo, as the Valonians soon learned, meant abandoning stealth entirely. The human operators began using their full arsenal, including explosive charges to breach doors and heavy weapons to clear hallways. They moved with a coordination and determination that seemed unstoppable. Hour after hour, the humans advanced deeper into the ship despite increasing Xerian resistance. When 3 operators were wounded, others carried them while still fighting. When ammunition ran low, they captured Xerian weapons and used them instead. In the Valonian Command Center, Dr. Lee studied the ship's layout. They're creating a direct path to the command center, but they're also strategically damaging key systems along the way. Look, they've disabled internal security, communications, and secondary weapons. They're not just trying to reach the command center, West realized. They're systematically crippling the ship's functions as they go. 10 hours into what should have been a 4-hour mission, Kelly's team suffered their first fatality when an operator named John Rivera was hit by Xerian crossfire while protecting wounded teammates. 3 hours later, a second human, Sergeant Dana Park, died holding off Xerian reinforcements so the others could continue forward. Through it all, Kelly's voice remained steady, directing his team with unwavering focus. "We didn't come this far to fail now," he told them as they regrouped outside the ship's main control deck. "Rivera and Park gave their lives so we could finish this. Let's make it count." The final assault on the command center was broadcast to both the human fleet and the Valonian command center. Using their last explosive charges, the human operators breached the heavily armored doors and stormed inside, catching the Xerian commanders by surprise. The fighting was intense but brief. 7 minutes later, Sergeant Kelly's voice came through, clearly. "Command center secured. I repeat, command center secured. This ship belongs to humanity now." A cheer erupted in the Valonian command center. Ilara turned to West with tears in her luminescent eyes. They did it. They actually did it. Over. The next 8 hours, the human operators used the ship's own systems to secure the remaining areas. Xerian crew members were confined to quarters or escape pods. By using the command codes they now controlled, Kelly's team could operate doors, life support, and other critical systems. When the 3 Xerian reinforcement battle groups arrived, 4 days later, they were greeted by the sight of their own command ship, now under human control, positioned at the head of the human Valonian defense fleet. Captain West opened a channel to the arriving Xerian fleet. "This is Captain Alan West of Earth," he transmitted. "Your command ship is now under our control. Your ground forces have been defeated. The cost of continuing this invasion exceeds any potential benefit. Withdraw, or face the full consequences of humanity's wrath." The Xerian fleet hung in space, seemingly frozen with indecision. Nothing in their military history had prepared them for this scenario. No species had ever captured one of their command ships before. No resistance had ever pushed back their forces so effectively. After 23 minutes of silence, the Xerian fleet began to move. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, they turned away from Valon and entered jump points leading out of the system. They were retreating, not just from the immediate battle, but from the entire campaign. In the Valonian command center, someone began to sing an ancient victory hymn. Others joined in, their silver faces shining with joy and disbelief. Ilara took West's hand in a gesture of friendship, her people reserved for their closest allies. "You humans," she said with wonder in her voice, "are unlike any species we have ever encountered." West smiled. "We're just getting started." 1 year after the human intervention on Valon, the planet looked very different. The crystal spires of the capital city rose once again, rebuilt with human assistance. The scars of war still showed in some places, but new growth and construction had covered much of the damage. On the newly built Memorial Plaza in the center of the capital, a ceremony was taking place. Hundreds of Valonians gathered around a simple stone monument that bore the names of all who had died in the defense of their world, both Valonian and human. Among the crowd, silver-skinned Valonians stood shoulder to shoulder with pink-skinned humans, their former differences now seeming small compared to what they had achieved together. Commander Ilara, now bearing the title of Ambassador Ilara, stepped forward to address the gathering. At her side stood Captain West, Major Wright, and Sergeant Kelly, all wearing formal uniforms decorated with Valonian honor symbols. 1 year ago today, Ilara began, her voice carrying across the quiet plaza, our world faced extinction. The Xerian Empire had conquered our cities, destroyed our defenses, and begun stripping our planet of its resources. We had lost all hope. She paused, looking out at the mixed crowd. And then human soldiers landed on our world, and everything transformed. A cheer rose from the gathering, both human and Valonian voices joining together. In the months since that day, Ilara continued, we have not only rebuilt what was lost but created something new and stronger. The knowledge and technology shared by our human friends has helped us develop defenses that will ensure Valon never falls again. And in return, we have shared our art, philosophy, and healing sciences with our new allies. She gestured to the children playing at the edge of the plaza, Valonian and human youngsters running together in a game that combined elements from both cultures. This is the future we are building, not just for Valon, but for many worlds. After the ceremony, Captain West and Ambassador Ilara walked through the rebuilt gardens that surrounded the plaza. The Valonian plants had been carefully restored, their crystal-like leaves catching the sunlight. The Galactic Council is still adjusting to the new reality, Ilara remarked. For centuries, they ignored the Xerian expansion, considering intervention too risky or costly. Then humans arrived on the galactic stage and accomplished in weeks what established powers thought impossible. West smiled. We're stubborn that way. When we see injustice, something in our nature demands action. The defense pact your government proposed has been signed by 27 species now, Ilara continued. The balance of power in the galaxy is shifting rapidly. For the better, I hope, West replied. Undoubtedly, Ilara agreed. The Xerians have withdrawn from 3 other occupied systems since their defeat here. They fear encountering humans, again. In the distance they could see Major Wright, now Colonel Wright, working with a mixed team of human and Valonian engineers on the new planetary defense system. The design combined human military technology with Valonian crystal energy focusing, creating something more advanced than either civilization could have developed alone. Nearby, Sergeant Kelly, now heading the joint training program, was teaching combat techniques to a group of young Valonians. The peaceful species had made the difficult decision to establish their first real military force, though they emphasized defensive capabilities rather than offensive ones. My ancestors would be shocked to see Valonians embracing military knowledge, Ilara observed as they watched the training. But you've taught us that being peaceful doesn't mean being defenseless. And your people have taught us that strength means nothing without compassion to guide it, West responded. This alliance benefits us both. As they spoke, a group of Valonian children approached, led by a small silver-skinned girl. She carried a beautifully crafted crystal sculpture, depicting human and Valonian hands clasped together. My grandmother was in the crystal spires when your soldiers came, the girl said, in careful English. She said that when the humans landed, everything changed, not just the war but how we see ourselves in the universe. West knelt to accept the gift. What's your name? Lyra, the girl replied. I'm going to be a starship captain like you someday. I believe you will, Lyra, West said with a warm smile. As the children ran off to play, Ilara turned to face the monument behind them. The first joint human-Valonian starship begins construction next month, she said. The council has decided to name it Rivera, after the Special Forces operator who gave his life on the Xerian command ship. West nodded in appreciation. John Rivera had been the first human to die in the mission to capture the enemy vessel, sacrificing himself to protect his wounded teammates. A fitting tribute, he said quietly. Above them, the skies of Valon, once darkened by Xerian warships, now hosted a steady stream of trading vessels and diplomatic shuttles from across the galaxy. Species that had once avoided the system for fear of Xerian reprisal now came freely to establish relations with both Valonians and the humans who had established their first embassy on the planet. Do you think they knew? Ilara asked suddenly. When your people came here to fight for strangers, did they understand how profoundly they would change the course of galactic history? West considered this as he watched human and Valonian families mingling in the plaza, children playing, adults talking and laughing together. The division between their species seemed to matter less with each passing day. I think they knew exactly what they were doing, he replied finally. Humanity spent millennia fighting amongst ourselves before we learned a simple truth. The greatest victories aren't won through conquest, but through connection. We didn't just save your world, Ambassador. You helped us find our purpose among the stars. That evening, as Valon's twin moons rose over the rebuilt city, a celebration began in the central plaza. Music from both worlds filled the air as humans and Valonians danced together. Foods from Earth were served alongside Valonian delicacies. Stories were shared, friendships deepened, and new possibilities imagined. And far away in the chambers of the Galactic Council, word spread of this unexpected alliance that had altered the balance of power throughout known space. The message was clear and unmistakable. A new force had emerged in the galaxy, one that would stand against tyranny and fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Just as all hope was lost, human soldiers had landed. And everything, truly everything, had transformed.